Awareness is always the first step toward dealing with toxic people, and smart people know this truth deeply. They don't ignore the quiet whispers of discomfort that come after spending time with someone who constantly leaves them drained. Instead, they pay close attention to how their body feels, how their mood shifts, and how their confidence dips after those encounters. Awareness is like a flashlight that exposes the patterns of behavior we might have normalized for too long. Without it, we remain in the dark, unknowingly giving power to the very people who rob us of peace. When you walk away from a conversation feeling smaller, it's a signal worth listening to. If every interaction leaves you second, guessing your worth or questioning your value, smart people don't dismiss that as coincidence. They notice the pattern and start to connect the dots between toxic words and emotional impact. They realize that feelings are data, not weakness, and this data reveals the quality of the relationship. This practice of self-checking gives them the clarity to stop making excuses for behavior that is damaging. Smart people understand that awareness begins with naming the reality of what they are experiencing. Too often, people excuse toxic behavior because it comes from someone close, or they minimize it by saying, "That's just how they are," but denial only prolongs the damage, making the cycle harder to break. Naming it as manipulation, criticism, or control gives power back to the person experiencing it. To call something toxic is not about labeling the person entirely, but about recognizing the harmful behavior itself. This act of naming is liberating because it provides a sense of control over a situation that once felt consuming. Smart people know that words have power, and when you can describe what's happening, you can create distance between yourself and the harm. It shifts the perspective from being a victim of vague unease to being someone who clearly sees the source of the problem. Toxic people often thrive on ambiguity because confusion makes it easier for them to dominate. But clarity disrupts their influence and gives the smart person the upper hand. Awareness also means refusing to ignore red flags that appear early on in relationships. Smart people learn to trust their instincts instead of dismissing them in the hope that things will change. If they notice consistent negativity, manipulation, or disrespect, they don't rationalize it away. They understand that toxic behavior often begins subtly and grows stronger when left unchecked. By identifying it early, they protect themselves before the damage becomes deeper and harder to heal from. Another critical part of awareness is self-reflection, because toxic people can trigger wounds or insecurities we haven't fully dealt with. Smart people look inward and ask themselves why certain comments or actions sting more than others. They see these reactions as opportunities for growth rather than just points of pain. This doesn't excuse the toxic person's behavior, but it ensures they don't give away all their power. When you know your own triggers, you can respond with strength rather than react with vulnerability. Awareness is not about obsessing over toxic people or giving them more space in your mind. Instead, it's about staying grounded in your reality and not being swept away by their manipulations. Smart people don't waste time analyzing why someone behaves the way they do, because that energy only fuels the toxicity. They redirect their focus toward what they can control: their own reactions, choices, and limits. This shift keeps their attention on growth and self-preservation rather than on chaos and conflict. Even when toxic people wear a mask of charm, awareness helps smart people see beyond appearances. They notice the contradictions between kind words and hurtful actions, between apologies and repeated offenses. They refuse to be blinded by temporary niceness that always gives way to the same destructive cycle. Instead of getting caught up in promises or excuses, they judge by consistent patterns of behavior. In doing so, they protect themselves from being trapped in false hope. Smart people also use awareness to separate responsibility. They recognize that toxic people project their own wounds, fears, and insecurities onto others. This understanding prevents them from internalizing every insult or manipulation as truth. They know the problem lies with the person acting toxically, not with their own worth or identity. That clarity frees them from unnecessary guilt and helps them stand firm when boundaries are tested. Awareness teaches smart people that they are not obligated to remain in harmful dynamics just because of history, family ties, or guilt. They view awareness as the compass that guides them toward healthier choices and stronger boundaries. By acknowledging reality without sugarcoating it, they honor their own dignity and well-being. They refuse to let fear or denial keep them stuck in cycles of pain. And in that awareness, they reclaim the power to protect their peace and energy. Boundaries are not punishments. They are the strongest expressions of self-respect. Smart people know that without boundaries, toxic people will consume every bit of space you give them. A boundary says, I value my peace enough to protect it, not I want to hurt you. It draws a clear line between what is acceptable and what is not. This clarity keeps their energy safe from constant erosion by toxic behaviors. Many people think setting boundaries is about pushing people away, but smart people see it differently. To them, a boundary is a door. It allows in what is healthy and keeps out what is harmful. It's not about isolation. It's about control over one's environment. Toxic people often test limits, searching for cracks they can exploit. Smart people stay firm, never apologizing for protecting their mental and emotional health. When smart people set boundaries, they are deliberate and calm rather than defensive. They don't shout, argue, or beg someone to respect their limits. Instead, they use clear language such as, I'm not available for that conversation, or that doesn't work for me. The power lies in their calmness because toxic people feed on emotional chaos. A composed boundary denies them the satisfaction of control. Boundaries also keep relationships honest by removing the guesswork of expectations. Smart people don't leave room for manipulation through vague communication. They understand that if they are unclear, a toxic person will twist their words and use them against them. By being direct and consistent, they create a strong shield against emotional exploitation. Boundaries make it impossible for toxic people to pretend they didn't know where the line was. Another strength of smart people is that they don't over-explain their boundaries. They know that offering long explanations only invites toxic people to argue and manipulate. A simple no is more powerful than a 5-minute justification. Over-explaining drains energy and puts them on the defensive, which toxic people thrive on. Smart people conserve their strength by keeping their boundaries short, clear, and firm. Boundaries are also flexible enough to adapt as relationships change. Smart people don't set rigid rules out of fear, but shape boundaries to reflect their current needs. They know that what felt safe years ago may no longer serve them now. Toxic people dislike this adaptability because it means they can't predict or control the limits. This evolution keeps smart people in control of their own growth and freedom. Enforcing boundaries often brings resistance, and smart people are prepared for it. Toxic people may accuse them of being cold, selfish, or uncaring, but smart people recognize these accusations as tactics designed to weaken resolve. They stay anchored in the truth that self-respect is not selfishness. This inner conviction makes their boundaries unshakable, even in the face of guilt-tripping or manipulation. Boundaries are also a form of teaching others how to treat you. Smart people understand that every no sets a precedent for respect. If someone crosses the line repeatedly, it reveals their true disregard, not the fault of the one setting boundaries. This insight prevents smart people from falling into endless cycles of self-blame. Instead, they use each boundary as a measure of who deserves to stay in their life. At the same time, smart people don't expect toxic people to suddenly applaud their boundaries. They know resistance is natural when someone loses access to power they once enjoyed. Rather than seeking approval, they focus on consistency. Their goal is not to convince the toxic person, but to protect their own well-being. They rest in the knowledge that healthy people respect boundaries and unhealthy ones resist them. Through boundaries, smart people regain control of their energy and time. They no longer allow toxic individuals to dictate their emotions or schedules. Instead, they decide what conversations to engage in, how much access to give, and when to step back. This conscious choice shifts the power back into their hands. Boundaries become the invisible armor that shields their dignity from constant attack. Smart people know that over-explaining is a trap that toxic people are always waiting for. The moment you give long justifications, you hand over your energy and create an opening for manipulation. Over-explaining is often rooted in the desire to be understood, but toxic people twist explanations to maintain control. That's why clarity and brevity are far more powerful. A firm, short response gives them no leverage to exploit. Saying now, without apology, is a skill that protects self-worth. Smart people understand that a simple, direct refusal communicates more strength than endless reasoning. When you say no once and mean it, you show confidence and self-respect. But when you provide excuses, toxic people look for holes to break through. Clarity sets the tone that your decisions are not up for negotiation. Over-explaining often comes from guilt or fear of being judged. Smart people learn that guilt is one of the most effective weapons toxic people use. The more you explain, the more they use your words against you, making you question yourself. By practicing restraint, you avoid falling into cycles of self-doubt. Resisting the urge to over-explain is not rudeness, it is self-protection. Toxic people thrive when you feel the need to convince them of your choices. They will argue, criticize, or play the victim until you bend to their will. Smart people break this cycle by remembering that their decisions don't require validation. They know that silence or a simple refusal is often the strongest response. By refusing to argue, they shut down manipulation before it begins. When you stop over-explaining, you reclaim your energy. Smart people realize that every extra word spent on toxic people is energy stolen from peace and progress. They refuse to spend hours defending choices that are theirs to make. They also learn that people who truly respect you won't demand explanations. Instead, they will honor your limits without turning them into a debate. Boundaries and clarity go hand in hand, and over-explaining weakens both. Smart people keep their boundaries strong by avoiding unnecessary dialogue with toxic individuals. If someone crosses a line, they state it clearly and move on without further justification. They understand that repetition doesn't make toxic people respect you more. It only gives them more chances to resist. Clarity delivered once is enough. The discipline of not over-explaining also builds inner strength. It trains the mind to stay calm under pressure and to stand firm in choices. Smart people know that toxic people crave emotional reactions, and explanations often provide them. By remaining brief and composed, they project authority and control. This practice builds self-confidence and reduces the emotional toll of toxic encounters. Over-explaining often comes from the fear of rejection, but smart people refuse to live in that fear. They accept that not everyone will like or agree with their choices, and that's okay. They value self-respect over approval and peace over pleasing others. Toxic people lose their power when they realize they can't guilt someone into compliance. This mindset frees smart people from the constant pressure of justification. The less you explain, the clearer your values become. Smart people communicate through consistency rather than endless words. They show others how they expect to be treated by their actions, not by repeated arguments. Their strength lies in living out their boundaries rather than defending them. In this way, their presence speaks louder than any explanation ever could. Smart people know that over-explaining drains not only time but also dignity. They refuse to hand over pieces of themselves just to keep others comfortable. Their clarity is a shield that keeps toxic people at a distance and preserves their energy for what truly matters. They replace over-explaining with confidence and self-trust. This allows them to walk away from manipulation without feeling guilty or defeated. Smart people know that toxic people thrive on emotional reactions. Arguing, shouting, or defending endlessly only feeds the cycle of conflict. That's why they choose calm responses over heated battles. They understand that their power lies in self-control, not in winning an argument. Silence and composure become their strongest tools in disarming manipulation. Toxic people often bait others with insults or guilt, hoping to spark anger. The moment you explode, they gain the satisfaction of knowing they can control you. Smart people refuse to give them that power by remaining steady and calm. They don't waste energy proving themselves right to someone committed to misunderstanding them. Instead, they let their restraint speak louder than words. Calmness creates discomfort for toxic people who thrive on drama. When they don't receive the emotional reaction they crave, their tactics lose effectiveness. Smart people understand this dynamic and use it to their advantage. Their lack of response forces toxic individuals to confront their own behavior without a shield of chaos. This quiet strength often exposes the manipulator's weakness. Remaining calm does not mean tolerating disrespect. It means responding with clarity. Smart people calmly state their limits without raising their voice or engaging in back and forth arguments. For example, they may say, "I'm not available for this conversation," and then walk away. This approach communicates strength without fueling conflict. It leaves no room for toxic people to twist emotions against them. Smart people also know that calmness protects their own health. Stressful confrontations raise anxiety, drain energy, and leave lasting emotional wounds. By choosing composure, they shield themselves from unnecessary turmoil. They recognize that toxic people want to drag them into emotional chaos. Staying calm allows them to keep their peace intact while refusing to play the game. Controlling reactions is also about timing. Smart people don't respond instantly to toxic comments or provocations. They pause, breathe, and give themselves time to think before replying. This pause creates space between the trigger and the response, ensuring they don't react impulsively. That small gap is where wisdom and control live. Toxic people cannot thrive in that silence. Another strength lies in choosing when not to respond at all. Smart people understand that not every comment deserves an answer. Silence can be a powerful boundary when words would only escalate conflict. By refusing to engage, they show that they are not available for manipulation. This strategy frustrates toxic people who depend on constant interaction to maintain control. Calmness also shifts the focus of power. When toxic people can't provoke a reaction, they realize they don't have influence over the other person's emotions. Smart people use this awareness to build stronger self-confidence. They see their calm as proof of growth and resilience. Every time they refuse to react, they reclaim a piece of their own strength. Smart people also practice empathy without letting it weaken their composure. They may recognize that toxic people act out of insecurity or pain, but they don't let that justify chaos. They can acknowledge the struggle without absorbing the negativity. Calmness allows them to see the situation clearly rather than being clouded by emotion. This balance of compassion and firmness protects their peace. Controlling reactions is not about suppressing emotions, but about channeling them wisely. Smart people still feel anger, frustration, and hurt, but they don't let those feelings dictate their behavior. They process their emotions privately through reflection or healthy outlets. In public, they maintain their calm as a form of self-respect. Their discipline ensures they never hand over control of their emotions to toxic people. Smart people know that walking away is not weakness, it is wisdom. They understand that some relationships and arguments are designed to drain them endlessly. Staying in such battles only robs them of energy, clarity, and peace. Walking away means choosing freedom over chaos and growth over stagnation. It is a decision that says, my well-being matters more than winning this fight. A toxic people often interpret walking away as surrender, But smart people see it differently. They know that true power is not about engaging in every battle. It is about discerning which conflicts are worth energy and which are not. By leaving the argument unfinished, they send a clear message of strength. The refusal to fight shows they cannot be baited into constant drama. Walking away also protects time, one of life's most valuable resources. Smart people recognize that no amount of arguing will change a toxic person committed to negativity. Every wasted hour is time stolen from progress, creativity, and joy. They redirect that time toward pursuits that uplift and strengthen them. This shift allows them to create a life built on peace instead of conflict. Another reason smart people walk away is because they know toxic people rarely change through confrontation. Arguments often lead to more defensiveness and manipulation. Instead of pushing for understanding, they accept the truth. Change must come from within the other person. Their decision to step back is rooted in acceptance, not bitterness. This clarity keeps them from wasting years in hopeless cycles. Walking away also protects emotional health. Constant battles with toxic people can leave scars of self-doubt, anxiety, and exhaustion. Smart people refuse to sacrifice their inner calm to prove a point. By leaving, they preserve their mental clarity and emotional balance. This act of self-preservation ensures they have the strength to thrive in healthier spaces. Walking away is also an act of teaching others how to treat you. When you no longer engage with manipulation or disrespect, you set an unshakable standard. Smart people understand that silence and distance often speak louder than words. Toxic people learn that they cannot maintain control when access is denied. This withdrawal of attention is a powerful boundary in itself. Smart people also walk away because they know their worth. They refuse to remain in spaces where they are not respected or valued. By leaving, they affirm to themselves that they deserve better. They choose self-respect over approval and peace over people pleasing. This decision reinforces their dignity and strengthens their confidence. Walking away is not avoidance. It is choosing battles wisely. Smart people know that peace does not come from winning arguments, but from refusing to fight battles that don't matter. They measure situations carefully and act with intentional restraint. They understand that walking away is not running from the problem, but walking toward freedom. This perspective transforms distance into empowerment. When smart people walk away, they also leave room for growth. Space creates the possibility of reflection for both themselves and the toxic individual. Sometimes the absence of attention is what reveals the depth of destructive behavior. But even if the toxic person never changes, the one who walked away has created space for healing. That choice is a victory in itself. Walking away also allows smart people to focus on building healthier environments. They invest energy in relationships that are reciprocal, supportive, and respectful. They understand that life is too short to keep fighting the same draining battles. Every step away from toxicity is a step closer to joy, freedom, and fulfillment. And for them, that is the smartest move of all. Smart people understand that empathy is a powerful gift, but even gifts need boundaries. They know toxic people often use guilt and pity as tools of control. If empathy becomes unchecked, it transforms into self-betrayal. That is why they practice compassion without sacrificing their dignity. They can care without allowing themselves to be consumed. Toxic people thrive on guilt because it weakens resolve and opens the door for manipulation. They will frame themselves as victims, exaggerate their struggles, or twist stories to gain sympathy. Smart people recognize this tactic and refuse to allow their empathy to blind them. They offer kindness, but never at the cost of their own peace. This balance keeps them strong while remaining humane. Empathy without limits becomes dangerous because it teaches toxic people that their behavior has no consequences. Smart people know that constantly forgiving or excusing toxic actions only reinforces the cycle. They choose to separate compassion from tolerance of abuse. They can wish someone well while still creating distance. This allows them to remain kind without being taken advantage of. Compassion for others must always be balanced with compassion for self. Smart people understand that self-care is not selfishness. They see that extending endless empathy to someone who consistently harms them is an act of betrayal to themselves. True empathy cannot exist if it destroys the one who gives it. Protecting one's heart is as important as caring for another's. Smart people also realize that empathy does not require access. They can feel compassion for a toxic person's pain while refusing to remain in close relationship with them. They know that stepping back does not mean they are cold-hearted. It simply means they value themselves enough to stay safe. This distinction keeps them from falling into emotional traps. Toxic people often confuse empathy with permission, but smart people never allow that confusion. They make it clear that understanding someone's struggles does not justify mistreatment. They remind themselves that explanations are not excuses. This mindset prevents them from normalizing disrespect in the name of kindness. Their empathy is strong, but it has boundaries. Another strength of smart people is that they do not allow guilt to dictate their choices. Toxic people often use phrases like, "After all I've done for you," or "You're the only one who understands me." But smart people recognize this as manipulation disguised as vulnerability. They refuse to let guilt undo their boundaries. Their empathy remains intact without becoming a tool for control. Smart people also practice selective empathy. They decide where their energy will have the most impact. Instead of pouring endless compassion into people who drain them, they choose to invest it where it can nurture growth. This shift allows them to protect their energy while still living with kindness. Empathy becomes intentional rather than reckless. They also understand that empathy requires perspective. Toxic people may have wounds of their own, but that does not erase the harm they cause. Smart people can acknowledge both truths at once. They can recognize pain without allowing it to excuse cruelty. This balanced perspective protects them from falling into cycles of justification. Empathy with limits is a sign of strength, not coldness. Smart people know they are not responsible for fixing every broken person. They focus on living in a way that honors their values while protecting their spirit. Their empathy becomes healthier, clearer, and more purposeful. It remains a gift, but it never becomes a weapon used against them. Smart people understand that life is too precious to be spent around people who drain rather than uplift. They don't only remove toxic individuals, but also make space for healthier connections. Relationships, to them, are like environments. You either grow in them or suffocate in them. They choose to surround themselves with people who bring safety and encouragement. By doing so, they create a foundation where trust and growth can thrive. Healthy circles are intentional, not accidental. Smart people know that the quality of their relationships determines the quality of their life. They invest in connections that nourish rather than deplete them. Toxic people are replaced with friends, mentors, or partners who celebrate progress and support dreams. This shift transforms their emotional landscape from one of survival to one of flourishing. Smart people also realize that being selective with relationships is an act of self-respect. They refuse to apologize for choosing carefully who gets access to their time and energy. Just as they protect their homes from intruders, they protect their hearts from toxicity. This discernment ensures that their inner circle remains a place of strength, not weakness. They know not everyone deserves closeness. They also understand that reciprocity is essential for healthy circles. Smart people give generously, but they expect balance in return. They notice who consistently shows up for them and who disappears when it's inconvenient. By valuing mutual respect, they ensure relationships remain fair and supportive. This prevents them from carrying all the emotional weight in a one-sided bond. Smart people also create environments where vulnerability is safe. They know toxic people weaponize openness, but healthy people honor it. In their chosen circles, They can speak freely without fear of judgment or betrayal. This safety fuels deeper trust and stronger connections. Vulnerability, when protected, becomes a powerful bond instead of a liability. Surrounding themselves with healthy people also strengthens resilience. Smart people know challenges are easier to face when they are not faced alone. Their circles offer encouragement during hard times and celebrate victories during good ones. This balance makes life richer and more meaningful. In supportive environments, struggles feel lighter and joys feel greater. Smart people are also deliberate about learning from those around them. They seek relationships that challenge them to grow and become better. Toxic people keep you stuck, but healthy circles inspire progress. By choosing uplifting influences, they raise the standard for their own life. Their growth is accelerated because they are surrounded by examples of strength and integrity. They also recognize that healthy circles are built through consistency. Trust does not form overnight, but through repeated acts of respect and reliability. Smart people value people who keep their word and show up when needed. They reciprocate that same loyalty, ensuring the relationship remains strong on both sides. This consistency builds a foundation that toxic people can never provide. Smart people understand that they cannot fully thrive in isolation. While they value independence, they also value connection. Healthy relationships remind them that they are not alone, even in difficult times. They see community as a source of strength rather than a burden. This perspective allows them to embrace closeness without fear of betrayal. By choosing healthy circles, smart people protect the trajectory of their future. They know that energy is contagious, and who they surround themselves with will shape their mindset. Being intentional about relationships is a form of self-care and a strategy for success. They replace chaos with peace, criticism with encouragement, and manipulation with trust. This conscious choice ensures their lives are surrounded by strength, not sabotage.